Welcome to Inside Games, the only gaming news channel brave enough to say that Astro Bot might be a little overrated. But before you get mad at me, actually you can just get mad at me, that's fine. But I'm not saying the game is bad. It's actually quite good. I really enjoy it. It's tied with some of the best platformers ever made. But there's some context to when it came out and how it came out that probably glows it up just a teensy bit more than the game itself might have earned. All I want to point out is that we're kind of in the shift of trends in gaming right now, and Astro Bot is the beneficiary of that. Other games, not so much. It doesn't mean that Astro Bot is worse or that you have to hate it. It just means that there's some movement going on that kind of influences people's general reception. And I've been in gaming a while now, and I can start to identify those things, and I think this stuff is pretty cool. So to put some form to it, let's go all the way back to 2010, a halcyon year. That's the year that Heavy Rain came out. I originally thought that The Last of Us started the era of sad dads, as it's come to be known, the PlayStation gritty, realistic, depressing kind of game. More adult-oriented, photorealistic kind of stuff. But actually, I think it was Heavy Rain. That came out 3 years before The Last of Us, and it has the saddest dad as its protagonist. It's also not the greatest game. It released to a lot of critical acclaim for, again, trendy reasons. This game, Heavy Rain that is, came after years and years of cartoon mascot platformers and crude sprite-based games. So Heavy Rain, a game that depicts sex work and has photoreal scenes of a tender, caring man changing a baby's diaper. These things seem very quaint by today's standards. They were kind of quaint back then. But they were new and exciting and different, and it seemed like it was matching what everyone agreed was the trajectory of the evolution of game design. We need more realistic scenes and adult content, again coming after years of bing bong wahoo platformers. Amusingly, 2010 is also the year that Super Mario Galaxy 2 came out. And I remember at the time a lot of people wrote Nintendo off completely as missing the point. They have lost the narrative of the evolution of games design because they're still making these cartoon bing boing platformers. Everyone basically ignored it. We'll get back to that later. But essentially Heavy Rain and games like it were contradictory to the established trend that we had seen in games for 10, 15 years before that. Colorful mascots, all ages entertainment. Now we have gritty stuff that, in retrospect, is kind of cringy, but I like it for that, to be honest. I love Heavy Rain because it's the campiest thing ever, but people took it pretty seriously when it came out, and that was a little weird. Basically, Heavy Rain was outside of the established trends of gaming, and people were tired of the current trends. So that made Heavy Rain a bit more celebrated than maybe the game itself earned due to the virtue of its artistry. And now things are a bit different. We've had a decade and a half of sad dads. And here's Astro Bot, a playful, colorful cartoon platformer that's here to sort of pick up on the downswing of all these sad dad games. My point is that, like every other artistic medium, things in gaming happen in waves. Games have been around long enough now to have established trends. Things get popular for a while because they seem new and different. They get played out and burned out, and then people are looking for the next thing. So we're on the downswing of the last trend. Open world, photoreal, sad, real life kind of stuff. So here's what drives me to what is a little bit odd about Astro Bot, is that it comes from PlayStation, who essentially set those trends 10 years ago, but now they're kind of stuck in them, or they're trying to establish new trends in things like games as service and flopping pretty hard. So it feels a little strange to have a game coming from PlayStation that celebrates the past outside of the trends. Meanwhile, the company itself has been chasing trends so hard they've been falling on their face. That's a little weird. And hey, speaking of nostalgia, I am a big fan of games referencing other games. It doesn't really happen enough in gaming. And Astro Bot's use of nostalgia is a bit odd because while they do wrap in some Sony-developed properties, they bring in a lot of other brands that Sony did not make and to some degree may have even financed as a platform exclusive in a game that borrows all of its design from Nintendo, which it doesn't even acknowledge. Now, I know how that sounds. I'm not saying that Astro Bot would be perfect if it did acknowledge Nintendo. I also acknowledge the real-world logistics of that. Probably pretty unlikely. You know, for all I know, Team Asobi did send a cordial email to Nintendo that landed in the circular file. I acknowledge the real-world probabilities of something like that happening, of a PlayStation first-party title putting in a full-throated celebration of Nintendo. You know, it's unlikely for political reasons. But that's the fun of criticizing art, is you don't have to really acknowledge all that. You can just take it for what it is and voice your reception to it. So for me, see a game that's so relentlessly PlayStation branded. That's the thing, I think. Every coin has the PlayStation logo on it. The central hub of the game has all of your little PlayStation denizens celebrating this 2001 monolith of a PS5, which, I mean, the console is freaking huge, so that's actually kind of funny. But still, it's so weirdly deifying and lionizing of PlayStation's history and past, when honestly the last 10 years of PlayStation have been kinda business-like, which is a bit weird. And then you have Nintendo, which has always operated outside of trends, to their credit, not really getting any credit for that. And also people celebrating a game that Nintendo made about 14 years late. So in that mixture, it's just like, something feels a little off, you know? I do want to pay special credit to Astro Bot's cameos. They're more than just cameos, really. The little bits that you collect, the little accessories you give them, and then they kind of demonstrate their in-game actions with it. That celebrates a lot of the connected games more than just having a character show up and saying hi. So Astro Bot did a really great job there, and it was super fun, and even kind of, made me curious about some games I haven't played, which is the best you could hope for in a feature like that. Even if it is kind of similar to the way that Smash Bros. Melee had a gacha system for all the Nintendo references in the game. But hey, whatever, good design is good design, right? Now, like I said, I'm all about games celebrating each other. I wish they do it more. Games are weirdly kind of austere and separated in this way. Movies and music are weirdly a lot more celebratory of each other. I mean, music especially is very honest with its homages and inspirations, sometimes a little too much. Now, there are some examples of it happening in games. I noticed that Bethesda games tend to reference each other a lot, which is fun. Immersive sim games do that 0451 door code thing as an homage to the original System Shock. There's a handful of arrow to the knee references in 2010s games. It's out there, but it's not as much as it ought to be for games like Astro Bot that are essentially kind of the same game. Now, I'm not saying that Astro Bot copied its design or that its similarities make it unworthy of praise. I tend to think that good design tends to converge. So you had all those eggheads at Nintendo making Mario Galaxy 2 14 years ago. They landed on certain design principles that are just sound, that are just good. I think the same thing probably happened at Team Asobi. They were making a platformer, and based on trial and error, they converged on a lot of the design that Nintendo discovered a while ago. But that's what makes its celebration a little odd. I can remember a decade and a half ago when no one gave any crap about Super Mario Galaxy 2, and here's a PlayStation skinned version of it that people are celebrating nonstop. Now again, trends are part of this. We're all tired of gritty, realistic games. We just want something fun. We want something that celebrates gaming. I guess if I have an ultimate point here, the thing that's become very clear to me is that pretty much everyone takes Nintendo for granted. Super Mario Galaxy 2 is a really good game, and Super Mario Bros. Wonder is also a really amazing game, but I think everybody just sort of writes it off as, well, that's Nintendo doing what Nintendo does. So if you liked Astro Bot, check out Super Mario Galaxy 2. Check out Super Mario Bros. Wonder. There's a lot of stuff going on there because Nintendo's been at that level for a while, and they're still pushing past it. So who knows? Maybe in 15 years, PlayStation will make a mascot platformer, the likes of Super Mario Bros. Wonder, and everyone will say it's great then. I can't restate this enough. I'm not telling anyone to not like Astro Bot. I'm just pointing out that there are aspects about it that make it a lot more likable than maybe if it came out 15 years ago. So just some thoughts for the road. There's no getting around it, really. This happens in every medium. Music, movies, like I said. There's a lot of art that gets created that's not celebrated in its time because people just aren't there for it, not ready for it, add too much of it one way or the other. My hope is that over time, everyone that enjoys games finds the ones that they like, regardless of what's getting buzz in the current moment. Which is why I'm shilling a bit for Nintendo. Not that they need it, but still, I just appreciate good game design, and I like it when good game design gets celebrated, which is why Astro Bot's great, and I hope we see more of them. It would be really interesting to see Team Asobi continue to iterate on the basis that they've made with the first Astro Bot. In the way that, honestly, it's been fun to see Nintendo continue to iterate on Mario platformers basically ever since 1985. Feel free to eviscerate me in the comments. Thank you for listening and considering my viewpoint, and I'll see you next time on Inside Games.